Shalom unto all of the children of Israel, unto all the precious people of Yahweh and Yahshua, wherever you may be found. We do total Yah for the beauty of another precious day, for the gift of life, our health and strength, the activity of our limbs, as well as even in the midst of our trials and tribulations with Shaitan as he seeks to even attack by way of the airways. We total Yah for your patience and your kindness. I want to remind each and every one of you that we are in the last days, and I believe, as I said in the Shabbat message to the children of Israel, that we're going to begin to see some things unfold that we've never thought humanly possible, or things that are beyond the power and the general nature of humanity as we've come to know it. Now is that time. If there ever was a time to pray, now is most certainly that time. We are looking at even a small technical difficulty whereby we're having just a bit of trouble broadcasting. It's beautiful that we get to segment 4 of the Open Series Bible discussion, and Shaitan seeks to attack the airwaves over ways and means by which I won't even bother to discuss. But I will say, continue to pray, to ask Abba Yahweh to continue to be with us, and every messenger, wherever they are, as they seek to broadcast, to put his word out over the airwaves that are owned by the Gentile nations. But let's all stay reminded that Yahweh says in the word that the earth is mine and the fullness thereof. So all of this is Abba Yahweh's, and he certainly has power even over the prince of the airwaves. And in that we rejoice that we're counted worthy to even suffer such a small or minor infraction for his name's sake. I don't know about anybody else, but it doesn't encourage me. It gives me the authority and the dominion to continue on, to fight, to present the truth of Yahweh's word. I want to say to you all tonight, as I open in part 4 of our opening series, that I've constantly reminded people there are other dynamics to this, but I wanted to start with 4, and as we go further along, I'll do it in an 8-part series, which of course this is the first 4. When we get to the segment, whatever, when we get to the next segment of this, I want you to understand something so strange, so wildly strange, and yet it is within the confines of Almighty Yah's word, that we really do have to look at the beginning of all things and then go back and examine the end, because it is in between where we're going to find that we're living and we realize all the power of Almighty Yahweh. So I want to start by reminding you, I opened with Yahweh's time frame of creation, or his work schedule. I went into the creation of man, fall of humanity after the flood and all those things that took place, and now we're getting into the Tower of Babel. I want to remind you that I was going to take a week off of this and get the rest of the notes together, but Abba Yah allowed me to see and understand. I have the notes all right there. Having gone through this all my life with my fathers and elders that preceded us, we look and realize you must know what a counterfeit is, because in order for a counterfeit to fool, to trick, or to deceive you, it has to come as close to the original as humanly possible. So if we're in the latter days, then we're going to need to know Yahweh's time frame, his work schedule in creation. We're going to know about the creation of man and his fall. We're going to need to know about the flood and the things that brought it about, and then the reconfiguring of evil under the Tower of Babel, because in case you haven't checked it, in the latter days, we're going to have to look at Shaitan's last days work schedule and see how something he's doing in the earth seeks to mimic what Abba Yahweh did in the beginning of time. As we move on, we'll begin to see the last days fall of man, and it's going to mimic that of the fall of Adam in the beginning of time. And this thing gets really vicious as we move along and look at Yah's word from that level. We'll also have to look at Shaitan's flood in the latter days, particularly as Revelations 12 lays out Shaitan's flood that pursues the woman, Yisrael. And this is going to take an extremely, I'll use the word, an extremely wild turn in this sense, because he knows that he has but a short time. And as we get to the close of the 8th segment, we'll also see the confusion and fall of Babylon, which holds it all together. Just as ancient Babylon had to be destroyed by the power of Yahweh, we'll see those 4 instances play themselves out as it was laid out in the beginning. You'll see this in the end. So just want to remind you all of that as we get into the heaviness of that, because we're going to have to pick back up on these things. And again, I ask that you continue to pray, Be steadfast in Yahweh. Be unmovable and unshakable, because that's all Shaitan wants Israel to do, is to be caught up in a moment of time whereby they can't properly function. Let's open tonight. Let's go into the scriptures. I want to look a little bit at the Tower of Babel, particularly from Genesis chapter 11. But I'm going to have to backtrack. I'll go back into Genesis chapter 10. I want to lay out something. And I want to get a goodness of you all to be able to see a good view here, as long as this pointer, this laser pointer still works. This is that region of the world here. All this land here. If we're going to use the term black people are the only people on the face of the earth that had an entire continent to themselves and did not have to share their land mass or their region with any other nationality of people. So everybody on this particular region of the world, they all look like, they all have the same dark complexion and hues. So you can't tell me that the people from up here were living all down in here. You can't tell me people over there were all over here. No, it all started here. And I want to make certain that we understand that. The Tower of Babel beginning right here in this particular region of the world, which we all today call modern day Iraq. If we know anything about the scriptures, or we look at it and study it well, we'll see that this particular region here, the land of Ur, the land of the Chaldees, all that from which Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, all of them had their origins here. The children of Israel, the Garden of Eden, all that's in this particular region of the world. It wasn't up here in Europe, so don't let anybody tell you anything different. It wasn't over here in China, don't let them pull that stunt. And you certainly better not come over here to the United States trying to say that it all started here. You have people that teach that foolishness, but we'll just bunk that with no problems whatsoever. I want to begin an outline for us that this is not a racial issue or a race dynamic. We don't have to argue the point of race, but what we do have to do is correct the racism that has come into the global history of the world. And people always say, well, race doesn't matter, color doesn't matter. We agree, we said the same thing, but we raise a simple point of contention with you that say that. We say, if it didn't matter, why then did you change it? Because see, today, when we go to say, well, no, that's not what happened, this is what happened. Now nobody wants to accept that, nobody wants to believe that, because see, then you got to go back and you got to restore the original people of the earth to their rightful state. The world is going to be surprised when they come to know and understand just who the chosen people of Yahweh really are. And that's the truth. And that's the fundamental dynamic that is driving global racism and racial hatred to this day. Yahweh's people had better snap out of all levels of foolishness, because we're really going to have to pray hard for one another. You won't be able to pray for the Gentiles first before you start praying for yourselves, because you got to get yourselves together to know that it's all contingent upon you. The scripture says that it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. But to them that are outside, meaning those that were not confines of the Torah, those that he never spoke to, it wasn't given to them. This is why, as Yeshayah 59:21 says, Yahweh says to the children of Israel that my words shall not depart out of your mouth, nor out of the mouth of your seed, nor out of the mouth of your seed forever. So somewhere in the earth at all times, wherever the children of Israel are, wherever they're scattered, those that are real and true, that word is going to rise up in them. It's going to bubble up like boiling water on a stove. They will know it. As Jeremiah the prophet said, it's like fire shut up in their bones. They cannot lie, as Abba Yahweh said, as well as they cannot deny their heritage. They cannot deny Hamashiach, and they cannot deny their Abba. So let's go to the book of Genesis chapter 11. I'll go there first and I'll interchange between 11 and 10. It says, the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. I want you to understand that now. There was one language and one speech, meaning the speech pattern. They were agreed on what it was that they were going to do and or what they intended to do. We're going to have to look at some things, and over the process of time, these series of Bible messages and lessons will touch on it, and it'll pull out things out of the history of the world and the various nations that were close to the children of Israel as well, or those nations that had proximity with us, because you're going to have to know some of their culture and some of the things that they imposed upon us as a people, because now some of those factors are hidden, such as the so-called goddess in the days of Nimrod, a goddess that they all worship. Abba Yah's command was to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill the earth, to replenish it, to go forth to do all that. But the Tower of Babel sought to stop all this. And no, we're not going to spread abroad over the earth. We're not going to fill the earth. We're going to do all of our business right here. And in fact, we're going to build a tower whose tops reach to the heaven. And we're going to overthrow the power of the Almighty, and we'll free ourselves. So I want you all to understand that. I remember in the 80s when the clubs were jumping and hopping and people being in the club singing, and it was a particular song that they would sing. It was always called the roof is on fire, we don't need no water, let it burn. They were talking about raising the roof, because now what they really intended to do, we'll raise the roof, the limit of heaven. that they felt was bearing down on them, we're going to push that back. We need to get that away from us because we don't need the power of the Almighty ruling us. I want you all to understand the significance of that because things like that will reemerge again. It says, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and there they dwelt. Now, the land of Shinar, again, this is here, up here, what you call Babylon, that region right there. That's where that happens. You can go and Google any particular history of this particular region of the world, Babylon. Saddam Hussein, at the time that he was alive, was building a replica of ancient Babylon. Being from that particular region of the world, he felt as though he would pay homage to his ancestors, and they were rebuilding a lot in that particular region of the world. I want to remind us that white folks in this world, they don't waste time studying things that mean nothing. You know, we can get back here and piss on the scriptures all we want, but white folks don't do no archaeological discoveries trying to determine whether or not Mickey Mouse ever lived and where he lived or anything like that. But they'll feed that type of garbage to you and I. Meanwhile, we'll sit back and say, well, the scriptures is untrue, man wrote it, it's faulty, it's this, that, and other. But these folks don't waste millions upon millions or billions of dollars studying things that are just not true. That which is untrue, they don't bother themselves with it. They're fascinated with truth in a way where they seek to hide it and dress themselves up in it. So as people will say, a well-dressed lie is easier to present than the naked truth. So they like to get the naked truth and cover it over with their lies. This is not to disrespect them. This is just a flat-out historical truth, and we're not going to sit around wasting time denying it or apologizing for having the ability to simply understand that. And they said one to another, go to, well, come on, let's get this done. Go do it. Let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. So you can see the technological developments and advancements of the age where they were able to build. They went forward and they began to do specific things. So let's not act, because that is the ancient days, let's not act as if they were cavemanish and they couldn't do. That's a whole different segment of history. That's another group of people's history. But these men and women had charted the course of the stars. They had charted the circumference of the earth. They had done a great deal of things. In this particular region that they found, it was specific for what they were trying to do. It was flat, low-level land. It was a plain in the land of Shinar. It was enough space to build what they needed to do, because they knew to build the tower to heaven, the base of it had to have a specified circumference to hold the weight of them seeking to build as high as humanly possible for the era of time in which they lived. When we start going into the lost books, and I preached a message on this a few weeks ago, we learned that the weight of that tower, when Abba Yahweh did allow them to get up to the heavens, they began to shoot arrows up there thinking that they were shooting at him. He sent the arrows back down to them with blood upon them. He knocked down one portion of the tower. He burned another portion of the tower. And the final portion, the weight of it even sank the foundation of it down into the ground, into that plain. Remember, they did not build this on a mountainous region. So Yah's people have to see that, and they have to know it and understand it in a way where we believe Yahweh's word. For as it is written, if we come to Yahweh, we must first know that he is. And that's the key to our studies, to believe and to understand it, to know it. So they said, let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. You see here in the 4th verse, they didn't want to go forward and develop in all the earth like Abba Yahweh said. In the book of the Psalms or Tehillim, it does say that he has created this earth to be inhabited forever. Even though man has messed this thing up so bad, Abba Yah says that he's going to make all things new. So you know you're pretty tough customer. You're pretty rough cookie anytime you've destroyed the whole earth. I was looking at some data and some material early in the week, talking about how they had destroyed the Amazon, the rainforest, and how much of a great damage it had done to the world. I was looking at some of the rainforests and different things that are down in Africa that spreads out through 6 countries, and how they're down there even destroying things like that. We, as the people of Yahweh, are in a time frame now where the conditions are so sad. I do humbly admonish all of us to just start practicing being quiet, because we're going to need to be quiet to be able to hear the voice of Abba Yahweh, because we're going to need him now, because the technological developments, the advancements, and some of the things that they're doing and writing about, I believe with all my heart and soul that a lot of these people, these clear-cut, straight up and down world rulers, are nothing less than devils. And when you start reading the policy and the planning and the formulation process that goes into it, you begin to pick up on key themes. You say, well, wait a minute, that's what they did at the Tower of Babel. That's why Yahweh destroyed that. Now here we are in the end times. We got some stuff coming at us, and Yah willing, I'm going to be able to include some of this in this. I just want to read a clip from something. I won't even give you all the name of the book. I'm going to save the book for some of the Shabbat messages, because I really want you to hear what the world rulers are saying about the world, about the people, about Yahweh, about the mind, about spirituality, so that you can start putting it together, because we don't have a leg to stand on without Yahweh and Yahshua. And for the Hebrews that disregard Yahshua, I won't even argue with you. I want to see how you're going to stand. Since the one that Abba Yah says, for his sake, he will overturn it, meaning the whole world. And it shall be no more until he come, whose right it is. And I will give it him. He didn't say them, he didn't say us, he said, I will give it him. Meaning, second Adam's going to rule this earth, just as Abba Yah said that he would. So for those that reject HaMashiach, you be careful with that, buddy. Be careful with it, because you're going to need him. Whether you like it or not, you're going to need Yahshua. He has a role to play, and no man can diminish from that role. I want to back up. I'm going to go back to the book of Genesis chapter 10. It says here 10:1. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And these are the sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog, Madi, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz and Riptah and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan, Eliashah, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. I want you to hear that first. Dodanim comes in last. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue and after their families in their nations. A lot of times, some of you are curious. You ask, Elder Johnson, what version of the scriptures are you reading from? It's really difficult to tell you all which version I'm reading from, because some Shabbats I'll come out and I'll hit the podium to preach, and I'll switch up the versions that I'm reading from, because I want to pull out a particular point of some of the references and the footnotes that the translators have in the books to help substantiate our understanding of some things. I'm reading tonight from the Archaeology Study Bible. If you know anything about me, I'm a bit of a fanatic when it comes to those maps and things. This is things my father taught. Again, this is the region of the world where all of it started. The whole of the creation story all started somewhere in this particular region here. Okay, you can get with your American pride, your American nationalism, your European nationalism, your Nazism, your hatred, your Afrocentric pride, your China pride, whatever. You get with all that. It all started in that particular region of the world that we call Africa. They have the audacity to call it the Middle East. There is no such thing as the Middle East, okay? If you notice, nobody in the world, no world commentators, no news reports, no published documentation, nothing. Nobody ever talks to you about the Middle North. Nobody ever says a damn thing about the Middle South or anything like that. They just get to this particular region of the world to throw you off. Now all of a sudden it's the Middle East. It's no Middle East. It is the East. And it is the center point of the earth where key things started from. So let's keep that in mind. I want to bring out a particular point here from this particular version. Again, this is the Archaeology Study Bible, published by a Crossway Group, whatever. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, skip all that. It mentions this footnote here. The Table of Nations. Many of the people and groups mentioned in Genesis 10 can be identified with relative certainty. So I want you to understand that. A lot of people, they deny the scripture. They say it's not real, it's not true. But the historians have gone back over the years and busted down the Table of Nations with specifics. And again, as they say, relative certainty, identifying people, their land masses, their regions. If you can read a good biblical map, you can pick up on some of these names. If you can get a hold of some of the older maps, or find some of these older encyclopedias and these atlases that deal with that, you'll see the names of these particular regions of the world, how they do not change. So let's be clear that most of it didn't really start changing until after the British and the other European nations began to sail around the world and colonize different nations. Now, to colonize people, that says a lot about the mind of the people that are being colonized. It says a lot about their spirit, because obviously, though they may fuss and fight and bicker among themselves, they had nothing or no trace of anything in them, or the repositories of the level of violence that the European world has to go against people at that manner to just conquer them. Nobody went up in Europe and just conquered all their lands the way that they've conquered all the other nations of the world. So the Pope and all these other guys, they're going to have to answer for things like that, because right now you're lying saying that this kingdom is given to you. No. He's given to you, your father, the devil, for a set period of time. But let's get into this now. He says, in general, the descendants of Ham settled in North Africa. Isn't it interesting that they say that the descendants of Ham, okay, we're going to go along with that, settled in North Africa. They talk about these particular regions here. We got to get into a discussion of where the ark landed after Noah got out of it. We got to start seeing where they were going as they divided themselves up. It says, the descendants of Shem in Mesopotamia and Arabia. This is this particular region here. I keep focusing on this Babylon, all these people here. So when you start hearing other nations talk about people are anti-Shemitic and all this other stuff, you got to know where they came from, so that people that are from this particular region of the world, all up in here, can't possibly tell you you're anti-Shemitic when you're from down here where the Shemites originated. So let's be clear on that. Then he goes further and says, and the descendants of Japheth of Europe and into the greater area of Asia Minor. This is Europe and all this stuff beginning here. This is where Japheth's seed and his descendants went. When you start looking at Javan, which is Greece, Tubal, and all the other nations, you're looking all up here in these particular regions of the world. So let's be clear, man. Elder Jacob O. Myers and others, man, what's the Jim, I can't even think of the little pastor's name, little Christian preachers and all that. They know this stuff. Arnold Murray and all the others. What's the little gray-haired guy? He just recently passed away. Jerry Falwell. All of them, they knew this stuff. So they will tell you other things to long enough throw you off track and keep you disorganized. But come on, we're not going to back up off of that. I want to get into this here. They define something, one language. They say a text from Mesopotamia called the Enmarca Epic. I want you to hear this because you all can go and look this up in the libraries. The Enmarca Epic indicates that the people in that culture also believed that the earth had previously had a single language. So you see now, this ain't just Hebrew fairy tales. This ain't just things that the Hebrews made up. And the so-called African scholars who are always doing all this Afrocentric reading and other stuff, I have big fights with these brothers because their research is biased in one avenue. Their research only believes all that they want to believe. It only proves all that they wish to believe. When we do research, and I've operated for roughly about 31, close to 32 years now as an independent investigative reporter. For my people, I've written articles and books and different things and published stuff. And a lot of times when you go out to research, what you go out believing versus what you find become two different things. And if you are a lover of and or a seeker of truth, when you have to publish the truth, if the truth goes against that which you believe, it's all right. Publish the truth, because you can only learn and be enriched by the truth. You cannot be enriched by denial. So we have to understand that. This is why Hamashiach says you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. Right now, a lot of times we don't want to know the truth. We want to keep hiding behind things like Jesus and all this other stuff. So I want you to hear what they say here. They say the Enmarca epic indicates that the people in that culture also believed that the earth had previously had a single language. The tablet reads in part, man had no rival. In those days, the land of Shubar and Hamazi, harmony tongued. Isn't that interesting? Sumer and the great land of the decrees of princeship. Uri, or the land of Ur, check this out now, having all that is appropriate. The land of Martu was resting in security, the whole universe and the people in unison. To Enlil in one tongue. Again, you all got to hear that. Now, this is what they're laying out. A Mesopotamian text entitled Irudu Genesis. I want you to hear this. Irudu Genesis describes the goddess Nintur. You got to look this up. Nintur, commanding humans to build cities and congregate in one place. Now, I want y'all to pick this up. Remember, in the opening phase of these messages, I asked the question that Abba Yah asked unto Mother Hawa. What is this that thou hast done? In other words, what is this that you were intending to do? So it's the spirit of this goddess woman, this rebellious spirit that we have to really look at in the latter days. We think Jezebel was a problem. Jezebel was a woman like anything else, but these fallen Nephilim, these fallen angels, these spirits took humanity and mankind and put man and woman against one another. And unless you understand that, you won't understand why Shaitan is angry with the woman to this day, because see, he tried to put the woman against the man, and he still cannot. As Yahweh said in the word, I will put enmity between your seed and the seed of the woman. So now you must understand, it all goes back to the woman. She was not in charge, but it goes back to her. So in the end, since she was the one he deceived and her husband submitted and went down with her, he's angry. And in the end, the woman, which symbolizes the bride of Hamashiach, now he cast out water like a flood after his mouth in the latter days to destroy the woman. I hope y'all are catching this. This is deep. I've been up here looking at this all day today. I've been here in this sanctuary for at least 8 to 10 hours just looking at this. I took a break this long as to go home to eat and to return to just lay this out for you and I. So if you're willing and if you please, just bear with me. I think you're going to love this. So now he says, her desire was for humanity to be sedentary and not nomadic. In other words, don't move, stay still, be stationary. Like right now, they shut the world down. Notice they don't want nobody moving. Don't do anything. And truth be told, if you understand what's happening, just as ancient Israel had to be still that night when the plagues hit, this is a global plague. And I advise all of Israel, wherever you are right now, remain still. Don't be trying to get all around, be doing a whole bunch of traveling stuff. Stand your ground right now because something's going on in the earth. This is a plague. They can call it pandemic. They can use sophisticated words, whatever. Pan means everywhere. Demon or demic means demons everywhere. So pay attention to what is taking place. Yisrael. Okay. In the Tower of Babel incident, listen, the Lord wanted the opposite, so the earth would be populated. You hear how they put that in it? The Lord. Most people know good and well in the ancient of days when they deal with the scriptures, they put the name of Yahweh there. So the translator said it now. He wanted something different. I ain't even going to argue that point. You know we use the name of Yahweh. So they give a picture of a ziggurat. I'm going to just hold the book up here. This is what they call a ziggurat. This is how certain pyramids were made. And if you notice, it has an extremely wide base so that it can be built upon and with specifics in angles. And as you would call yourselves panning in, it goes on up as high as they would need to take it. So I just want to get that across to you. Again, this is from the Archaeology Study Bible. This is one of those Bibles that's full of maps and full of maps and geographical points of origins of different things, carvings, the imagery. It shows a lot. So Yahweh's people would have to know and understand things like that. Don't always try to rush out and buy every book you see me with, every book that I quote from sometimes, because you'll end up spending thousands upon thousands of unnecessary dollars. Abba Yahweh has blessed us. We've already done that for you. So over the process of time, we'll read them, we'll quote them, we'll enter them into the record, what have you. Buy what you need as it suits you whatsoever. But the main thing is ready your souls. This is what Israel has to do. Ready your souls. We're not worried about people that don't like what we're saying. We pay them no mind. We're not worried about how Shaitan, Prince of the Air, tries to stop and or block it. Abba Yahweh make a way to get around. No way. So we have to know that. Now, going back in Genesis 10, remember what it says here, 10:5. It says, by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nation. So it starts here, looking at Europe first. You will want to understand Europe being listed now, the way that it's listed. And the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. These are black nations. They always tell you about the Hamites, the Cushites, and all the others. Mizraim, Put, Canaan, the Ethiopians, the land of Canaan that Abba Yah gave to the children of Israel, which is sitting up there at the foothills or the top of Africa. That particular region is right there, that land that we call Canaan. Scripture speaks of the land. Abba Yahweh says also, and our land shall be called Beulah. One of our great historians, Dr. Ben Yohanan, he calls the land Al-Kebulah as well. And again, as a beloved brother of ours pointed out in the history of the world, these nations, it is a land, Abba Yahweh said, it is a land that is married unto him. The land Beulah, that's what Beulah means. And if you don't think that the people are married to Abba Yahweh, these African nations have the names of females behind them. Botswana, you hear that? Zambia, I want you all to pay attention to that. Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, and it goes on. Nigeria. I want you to pay attention to that. Because, see, people swear up and down that Abba Yahweh is not married to his people. But those lands are the lands of female. Notice, this wasn't no male-male thing. The lands were named after women. Because it is a name, it is a nation, it is a group of people that are married to the Most High. We have to get into that. So the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Put, Canaan, you start tracing these names down, you'll find that these are the names of nations: Ethiopia, Egypt. You start looking at all those different places and realize who they are. The sons of Cush, Seba and Havilah, Sapta, Remar, and Saptika, and the sons of Remar, Sheba, and Dedan. You have to know these nations. It goes back, verse 8, and it says, and Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. When we start to read the stories of the lost books or the suppressed books, don't ever call them lost books. They were never lost. When we went into captivity, these people took our history, our culture, our language. They burned up the libraries, things that were insignificant to them. But other things, they took it and kept it, and they carried it back to that hellhole that you call Europe. And they kept our records there, and they know these things. So it is recorded that after the sons of Noah came up out of the ark, one of the sons had the clothes of Adam, made exclusively by the #1 designer in all the universe. Abba Yahweh designed coats of skin for Adam and Hawa. And these coats were handed down, and eventually Nimrod got a hold of them. This power, this Kodesh power of Abba Yahweh that touched those coats of skin, that kept Father Adam covered in Yahweh, was put on and was what made Nimrod a great man, a mighty one in the earth. And that power of those clothes was upon him, and thereby he began to be worshipped as a mighty one. We must know what took place at the Tower of Babel, because here it says, he was a mighty hunter before Yahweh, for which cause it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahweh. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, or Babel in Hebrew, and Erech, and Akkad, Calneh, and the land of Shinar. Now, remember, back over here in Genesis 11:2, it says, and it came to pass that they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of, what is it again? Shinar. And they dwelt there. The land of Shinar. This is where Babylon got its initial opening point. So we got to know that. So out of that land went forth Asher, and builded Nineveh, and the city of Rehoboth, and Calah, and Racing between Nineveh and Calah, the same is a great city. And Mizraim begot Ludim, and Anaim, and Lehabim, Naphtuhim, and Paruthim, Calshuhim, and out of whom came Philistim, and Caphtorim. You have to know that these lands were lands in the particular region of the world that you now call Africa. You can't throw this stuff away if all of this is starting in the beginning of the book. This is why one group of people today, they commandeered the scriptures and they only teach from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They don't go to the left of Matthew and they won't go to the right of John. Something's wrong anytime you got 66 books and you specialize in using 4 plus Psalms and Proverbs. I can't get with that. And you ain't going to learn nothing like that. But you all, hey, you follow them if you want to. But I tell you, at the end of the day, you're going to follow them to the hottest place that the world has ever known in the history of its own existence. So Yahweh's people have to be ready to understand that. Let's get down a little further. He goes, verse 20, I'm skipping some of this. He says, these are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. So now we got all of them lined up. You can start tracking them. You can start tracing them and see if when you start looking them up, you see if you leave the land of Africa. You ain't going to leave it yet because you're dealing with them as they are. Unto Shem, verse 21, also the father of all the children of Eber. Now you got to pay attention to this word Eber now because it's going to come up again. The brother of Japheth, the elder, even to him were children born. The children of Shem, Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. And the children of Aram, Uz, Hul, Geter, and Mash. And Arphaxad begot Salah, and Salah begot Eber. Let's pay attention. And unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of the one was Peleg. Pay attention, Peleg. For in his days was the earth divided. The scripture speaks of a great earthquake. And the greatness of that earthquake is what shook all these nations apart like they were shortly after the flood. It shook the nations apart and it got all the water that you and I see between the nations. If you look at a map real close, you'll see it's really just one giant puzzle. And I want to point out something as well for Israel to understand. Out of Jerusalem, when Yahweh Yahshua is sitting on that throne, shall flow living waters. Remember now, Yohanan said he saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the former heaven and earth were passed away. And he said, and there was no more sea. Why did he say he saw no more sea? Because just like scripture teaches us that they all got to come here every year to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Yahshua's going to reconstruct this earth. You ain't going to be flying in those 747s and all those filthy airplanes and polluting the ozone and all those stuff. It's going back to the way that it was, and you're going to have the time to travel to come to Yahweh, and he's going to renew all this. So when he puts it all back together, you're not going to have thousands of miles of water separating you. Those that need water, the water's going to flow from the throne of the Lamb and Almighty Yahweh, living waters. So Abba Yah knows how to do this, and he reveals this to his servants, the prophets. That's what the scripture says. Yahweh ain't got to come down here to teach you this and show you all this. He says, surely Yahweh Elohim will do nothing, but he revealeth his secrets unto his servants, the prophets. So how do you think we know this if he ain't revealing it to us? So those that doubt us, those that hate us, those that despise us, you keep on. We ain't paying you no mind as long as you stay in your lane. Okay, go back into Genesis chapter 11. This they began to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Are y'all hearing this? Had he not busted it up then, what they're intending to do today, in the last days of the Gentile age, had they had all that time as one language, as one speech over the whole earth to keep growing and multiplying and populating in one language, man, you would see something in this earth. So Abba Yahweh stopped them. Let me read from a book. I'll give the title of the book at another date and time. This is from a world ruler. You got to understand, these people that's running this world and the stuff that they're doing, they are not playing around. So don't keep sitting back acting like this is all just a game. I want to just read one point. They use this phrase. In the 70s, there was a group called the Club of Rome. Club of Rome had all these different reports that they put out. And the Club of Rome was taken very seriously by the world powers. Anyway, I have like the first 7 or 8 of their reports, which were most important to us at that time. As a researcher, I did manage to secure them. In the Club of Rome reports, they had one called Mankind at the Turning Point, meaning we're at a specific time frame now where we can begin to shift the dynamic of how the earth works. I was reading up on how after Roosevelt with the New Deal and all of the things that were put in place, people were growing, they were prospering, they were developing, they were able to do this, that, and other. But as soon as the New Deal was put in place, specific rules began to change. Democrats versus Republicans, the fight intensified, all this other stuff. If you go back, you look at the old Western, the history of Tombstone, Arizona, and places like that, the cowboys were fighting one another against the Wyatt Earp family and stuff. You learn that it was a Republican versus Democratic battle. That's all that it was. I want y'all to understand that for a reason. Because when they did Mankind at the Turning Point, what they were saying was, okay, we're at a point now where we can make a dramatic shift in the history of the world now, because we're getting closer to the time where this thing is almost over for us. They got from Mankind to the Turning Point, but they're now at Mankind and the tipping point. So all throughout this book, they keep using the phrase tipping point. Tipping point is a time frame when the technology, which is already there a lot of times, it just hasn't been fully released to the public. And the tipping point hits when you introduce it to the public and it takes off with exponential growth. Cell phones were a tipping point for humanity. Laptops were a tipping point for humanity. Driverless cars are a tipping point for humanity. So they're identifying key things now that are getting them back to the original days of Tower of Babel. You got to hear this. A World Economic Forum report published in September of 2015 identified, listen, 21 tipping points. That is, moments when specific technological shifts hit mainstream society. They will shape our future. They will shape our future digital and hyper-connected world. They are all expected to occur within the next 10 years. Did you hear that? In 2015, they released a report and said that all of these things, 21 things, will tip the hand so that the world is now in their lap. And they'll occur in the next 10 years. That means, if I'm right, we got 5 years to go before they got certain other things in place. And your countdown for the last final 30 years, hey, you can begin the countdown when you want. I know what the scripture says. Yeah, anyway. They are all expected to occur within the next 10 years and therefore vividly capture the deep shifts triggered by the fourth industrial revolution. Now remember, they talk about these revolutions, and each revolution did something to man and mankind, meaning the whole world. The tipping points were identified through a survey conducted by the World Economic Forum's Global Agenda Council. Keep that in mind. the World Economic Forum had a global agenda council on the future of software and society. Now it's long, but let me say it again. Global Agenda Council on the future of software and society, in which over 800 executives and experts from the information and communications technology sector participated. It says that this presents the percentage of respondents who expect that the specific tipping point will have occurred by 2025. And in the appendix, each tipping point and its positive and negative impacts are presented in more detail. 2 tipping points that were not part of the original survey. 2 tipping points that were not part of the original survey. Designer beings. That's people. You. Having the ability to pick the entire specific genetic makeup of your child, as well as the type of technology that goes into them. I hope you heard what I just said. Designer beings and neurotechnologies are also included, but did not appear on the table. Neurotechnologies, in which wiring, the hardware, the circuitry that goes into the human brain, some of the wiring and things that are now used to download information into your brain after a chip is implanted in you, can now make you smarter than ever before. Let's not play this thing cheap. Daniel said that the devil was wiser. Y'all says to Daniel that the devil is wiser than Daniel. And there's no secret that they can hide from you. Daniel said in the latter days that the knowledge would be increased and that people will run to and fro. You don't have to be smart now. They can go and get the surgery for you. You can get the information downloaded in you because you now belong to this beastly system. Yisrael, Yisrael, Yisrael. Y'all, please help us. Because what's coming, we act like we don't see it. And sometimes it is a tremendous headache, man. It is a tremendous burden to know all this. You can understand why the word of Yahweh said that the burden of the word of Yahweh, this is a heavy message to bring forth to the people of Yahweh. And then have to tell them straight out the gate, listen, y'all, 4 things that took place in the beginning are the same 4 things that Shaitan is going to use to try to destroy Yahweh's people. He's working on the same exact time frame that Yahweh did. Yahweh did everything and rested the 7th day. Shaitan, in the last phase of it, Yahweh gives him 7 years to complete what he's trying to do. Man was created and fell. Shaitan is trying to create man in his own image while making that which is left of humanity, making it fall with him just as it fell in the beginning. Then there's a flood that came to wash away all the sinners of the earth. Shaitan, Revelation says, will cast out water out of his mouth like a flood to go out after the woman. The same thing, trying to drown out the righteous. The flood ain't a literal flood like the flood of Noah. The flood is the unorganized masses of the people, like Revelation 17:15 teaches us. When are we going to catch on and see how serious this is and fall on our faces before Abba Yahweh? Come on, Yisrael. If I'm lying, I'm sitting here flying, and I damn sure ain't flew nowhere yet. So we need to think about what we're up against. And as if that ain't enough to make man fall, Tower of Babel had to fall because Yahweh had to stop everything they were intending to do. And Revelation 17, Revelation 18 certainly speaks of Babylon falling, that great city. And when it goes, it takes the business community with it and so many different things. And Shaitan gets so angry because his whole plan has been scattered abroad. Abba Yahweh's children are going to need a redeemer. And he promised in the word to send them one, and a great one. So again, I always remind you all, don't be giving no praises and accolades to me. You give it all to Yahweh and to his son, Yahshua HaMashiach. I'm a man just like you and I and all the rest of us. I got to lay down my life one day and take a final breath as well. Yah willing, we'll get back up and see his blessed face in peace. So give all the praise to Abba Yahweh and to his son, Yahshua. Let's do that. Let's not be like that thing in the White House. Let's not be like those others around the world who are so busy trying to congratulate themselves in every step of the way. But ask Abba Yahweh, like the scripture says, to bust them down, to let them know that they are but men. So Yisrael, let's get back into these scriptures real quick, because I want you to hear these things, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to lay out for you what it is that they're dealing with in the latter days. So now, if Yahweh said in verse 6 here, Genesis 11:6, that nothing which will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. He says, go to. And then what they said, come on, go to. Let us build the tower to reach to the heaven. Yahweh says, go to. Let us go down. Notice he said, let us. I want you to hear this now. He says, let us go down and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. Now, where have you heard an argument over speech? Did not Yahshua say to the wicked in his era of time, why do you not understand my speech? He said, it is even because you cannot hear my words. So unless we really understand, history is fully repeating itself. They could not hear Yahweh's word. He said, be fruitful and multiply, to dress this earth, to till it, and to keep it. We were commanded to do these things and do it the right way. Today, we just simply refuse to obey Abba Yahweh. Come on, man. I was here today in the sanctuary. I was here a few hours ago, and I was in my office studying something. And I got to a specific note. And as I was reading these notes, and I read in Peter, where it says that the earth shall melt with fervent heat and a great noise. About 5 to 10 seconds into reading that, right out the front of this sanctuary, I heard this boom, and it shook the building. I didn't pay any attention. There's a supermarket next door. They have these giant freezers. I assumed that they may have knocked over a crate with some of their meats or foods in it. I said, well, they're over there doing something. I assumed that that's what it was. But as I came out and I left to go home, just long enough to eat, and an accident had taken place right out front of the sanctuary where I would usually have parked in the daytime. I generally park in the back of the lot, but I would have parked out front. Right where I would have parked. It was so crowded I had to pull onto our parking lot. Otherwise, it would have hit my vehicle. But Abba Yahweh was just giving me a sign and showing me that when these great noises begin to hit and it shake this earth, sure enough, we as Yahweh's people had better be ready. We better be prepared. I was safely tucked away right here in the sanctuary. I heard it all, but yet it did not come nigh me. And Abba Yahweh gave me a sense of understanding that though it was just that close, that's how he's going to take care of many of us as his precious children. He says that 1,000 shall fall at thy side and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. This is why you want to strive to live right in Yahweh. You ain't got no time to be fussing and fighting among yourselves as Israel. You ain't got no time to be holding no grudges. And you certainly ain't got no time to be putting up false prophets on the wrong people, on the women preachers, and all this other stupid stuff that causes us to fall. Now is the time of our rise. So we certainly have to pull this thing together, man. I don't know how much more pleading we can do with each other to at least get it right. Push one another. Encourage one another to do right. This is real. This is coming. I don't know what more we're looking for. But let's keep in mind as well, Yahweh will give you all the time you need to get your life together. Don't waste your time. Get it together while it is yet day. So he says, let's confound the language that they may not understand one another's speech. So Yahweh scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. You hear that? Once he scattered them, they couldn't build the city no more, but something interesting took place. Just as Yahweh put his Ruach upon all of Israel from the beginning of the time that he chose them as a nation, somebody somewhere in every age and in every generation that was a child of Yahweh, somebody somewhere in every era of time that was serving him, they had his Ruach. Well, guess what? Shaitan works the same way. Once Yahweh scattered them abroad so that they couldn't effectively communicate with one another anymore, they became these nations from the table of nations, the sons and daughters of the different nations. They could no longer speak each other's language. And then when they heard somebody speaking their language and they knew to pair off with them, that was of their nationality. They were kith and kin. Then they could talk and communicate. But just as the Ruach has forever been upon Yahweh's people down through the line of time till the last day standing, that same evil Ruach has been upon these nations with that general order, that general tone and direction and that conduct to build something that is in direct opposition to Abba Yahweh. I don't know how we think this thing won't play out. I got some people I talk to that make me so sick. And they make me sick because everything that I say and lay out and outline according to the word of Yahweh and how destructive this world system is, when they speak to me, they're always speaking from a perspective of the possibilities of being able to join this, the being able to ward it off, being able to save ourselves by just submitting to it. I ain't interested in submitting to this global system. I am interested in submitting to Abba Yahweh, and I know that you are too. That's why you are faithful followers of this channel, with the exception of 3 of you. But nevertheless, you are faithful in following Abba Yahweh and any other messengers, wherever they are, wherever they may be preaching, whether they preach like me or I preach like them, pray for the unification of Israel, because we gonna need it. Man, we gonna need it. Therefore is the name of it called Babel. In Hebrew, that Babel, because Yahweh there did confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did Yahweh scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. See how he worked it out? He scattered them abroad upon the face of all the earth. He did not cease to do that. He moved, and he moved in a manner where he could get his work done. Let's get back to these nations. I spoke with a dear daughter of Yah who asked for prayer in reference to her job and some other things that were taking place, and reading through this material, these world orders, and I noticed that they gave a listing of particular jobs as they start shifting and tearing down the economy and doing all the things that they were going to do to get their system in place. And what I found was that they have a time frame and a job schedule that they're working on with. They were talking about all the jobs that would be automated and pushed out and unemployment. Then they were talking about specific jobs that would be needed. And as I remember praying for the dear daughter of Yah, I looked back over the data, and the job in the field that she worked in was #1 on the list, whereby they realized can't quite do away with that. You're going to need that as a field. And I know for certain that even here in our congregation, many of the daughters of Abba Yah that have to work in that particular field as well, and they are quite neat, which thus, even in the midst of a pandemic, makes them essential workers. And as I thought about those of us that do have jobs and have incomes that we have to earn, even in this world, in this earth, and in this lifetime, that Abba Yah will shield us, comfort us, protect us as the system grows closer and closer to tightening its noose around our neck, that we be shielded even from that. Tipping points expected to occur by the year 2025. You all got to hear this. 10% of people wearing clothes will be connected to the internet by 2025. But already they have 91.2% of all people on the planet that wear clothes connected to the internet. Think of what I'm saying. 90% of the people having unlimited and free advertising supported storage. They're laying it out. They want at least 1 trillion sensors scattered all over the earth connected to the internet. You know what they say? They're 89.2% of the way there. Over 1 trillion sensors in the world, everything spying on you. I just looked at a video clip the other day of Edward Snowden. I was going to do a story on Edward Snowden. I was going to write something. I had a whole stack of material, research material. Yahweh allowed me to clean my office one day, and accidentally I threw it all away. But I looked up and it wasn't accidental. I didn't even need to concern myself with that. But he did try to warn the people. He said it. Come on, Israel, listen to this. The first robotic pharmacist in the U.S., they expected to have it by 2025. They are 86.5% of the way there. You hear that? Hospitals today have machines, robots that comb the floor and come to your bedside. And there's a picture of a doctor and he's talking to you electronically. But the robot is there and it's doing a great deal of work. Pay attention. 10% of all reading glasses are connected to the internet. 10% of reading glass. See how they're spying, putting little microchips and different things in your glass. I want y'all to hear this. They want by 2025 at least 10% of all reading glasses connected to the internet. They're 85.5% of the way there already. 80% of the people with digital presence on the internet. They want 80% of the people on the planet to have a digital presence on the internet, having logged on to some type of website or something of some kind. They're 84.4% of the way there. This is terrible, man. This is global control. They want government to replace its census with big data sources. You ain't got to fill out the data now, the census now. They come to your door still, but you ain't got to fill this out because we got ways of still tracking you and getting your information. We want 90% of the population using smartphones. 90% of the world, they want them using smartphones. How far are they away? 80.7% of the way. That's 80% of the world already is using or connected with a cell phone. They want 90% of the population with regular access to the internet by 2025. They're already 78.8% of the way there. The first transplant of a 3D printed liver. I was just exposed to 3D printing for the first time. A young brother and a member of the congregation here on our channel, he set up a 3D printer and he printed a whistle from a grandson. We sat there for 1 hour, watched the 3D printer make a whistle. You blow into it and it's an actual whistle. Now, they're talking about a digital printer that can make a transplantable liver. Come on. But yet they work so well with it that all they then have to do is make it illegal for you to not have electronic glasses, to not have a cell phone, to not be connected to the global banking system. We are not paying attention to what's taking place in this earth. Yisrael, we are in deep trouble. If Abba Yah doesn't speak to the mind of us, we'll miss it. There are 23 things. The man said that there were 2 others that they didn't put on the list, but 23 things that they intended to do. And all these things are connected to Western civilization, which is a racist code word for white civilization. I want you to hear this as I begin to draw down on my wrap up. What they're doing for society is called the deep shift, meaning you in the world, you're used to banking, you're used to writing a check, you're used to driving. Now we're going into deep shifts where all the things that you pay, you can go to one another's houses right now. And they reported that on the news Monday morning. California deep shift. They want implantable technologies in human skin. They want digital presence, meaning they'll be able to log on to you wherever you are in the world, you can log on to them. Vision as a new interface. In other words, now you can look with your eyes, laser surgery and all these other things. We have to be so careful in their hospitals because the cameras, the imagery, the technology, some of the stuff is so small, it can be slipped up on us and we will not necessarily know that we have it until it's too late. You mean to tell me we don't need to be praying? They want you to have wearable internet. What exactly is wearable internet? Now, those of us that are in Hollywood, and I don't mean watching Hollywood for the sake of being entertained. Not the first one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but the second one with Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell was on the run, and he was hiding from government agencies. And the woman was sick and tired of them losing him. She said, "Where is he?" Turned his phone on, and his hand lit up, and it started to ring. He had the implantable technology in his head. He had lost his memory, but it was in his hand and he could go. She told him, find a piece of glass. He found a storefront and he put his hand on the glass and the whole glass became a computer screen. Come on, Israel. They're not playing with us. Supercomputers in your pocket. That's this type of stupid stuff here. In your pocket. Might be in the phone case or in the clip, but it's still counted as what? Being in your pocket. Storage for all. So now you got your own web page, you got all this stuff. You can store all your stuff you need. The internet of and for things. Isn't that amazing? Internet for everything. Want to know how to fix a car? Go Google it. Want to know how to cook a dinner you ain't never cooked before? Go Google it. The internet of things. The connected home. Walk in the home. Lights, please. Siri, turn the heat up to 75. All the toilet flush. Come on. Smart cities. Where the cities now don't even need stoplights because it's projected to your cars, to your automobiles. If you run a light, you run into anything, stop sign, you're automatically ticketed because everything's cool. Come on, you all. This is a world and this is total tracking now. You think Abba Yahweh intended us to live this way? Big data for decisions. That's all the governments want. More and more information so they can make all decisions just based upon one-stop shop for all. Driverless cars. Artificial intelligence and decision-making. Artificial intelligence and white-collar jobs. Robotics and services. Bitcoin and blockchain. The sharing economy. Governments and the blockchain. 3D printing and manufacturing. 3D printing and human health. 3D printing and consumer products. Designer beings. And neurotechnologies. I think the most dangerous one of all is designer beings. Because this gets us down to Shaitan trying to do exactly what Abba Yah did. Abba Yahweh designed man. Shaitan don't trust man. He wants to control man by now merging man with his computer and with his technology, and he can watch him. The question is, who gonna watch the watchers? The watchers in scripture were evil. They didn't come to deliver the children of Israel. So I say to you and I today, we as a people are in deep trouble. We're at the Tower of Babel now. And whether we want to realize it or not, the original Tower of Babel, it was evil, and it fell. But this one that's coming, humanity is trying to pick up on where their forefathers left off. And Abba Yahweh said Let's go down and confound their language. Now, you think that that's strange? But Yahweh says, after he cleanses and cleans up this earth, he says, then will I turn to the people a pure language. So, whatever it is, we better pray that our heart and our minds, and may the meditations of our heart be pleasing and acceptable in Yahweh's sight. Because whatever it is that's going down, this ain't nothing to play with. And if you think it made Daniel sick to his stomach, and he was well over 2,700 years ago, and he saw it, you and I walking around here blind, deaf, and dumb today, that's not going to ameliorate it. For in much wisdom is much grief. And he that increases his knowledge increases his sorrow. I've been sitting at my desk holding my head all day today because this stuff really gave me a headache. But I told Abba Yahweh that he gave me relief and he gave me enough strength to come here and sit down and deliver it to you. You take this information and do with it what you will. For freely we have received and freely I've given. And may Abba Yahweh baruch your souls. Yisrael, I told you for your kindness and your patience. May Yah baruch you all. Shalom.